Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Human Library podcast. My name is Michelle, and I will be your host for today. For the inaugural episode of the Human Library podcast, we have invited Shuting and Eunice to speak with us today, and they are both incoming second years of the MBBS program. They will share with us some insight on their past experience during their first year in university. Hello, Shuting. Hello, Eunice. How are you feeling today?
Hi, feeling great. Thanks for inviting me onto the podcast.
No problem. Very glad to have you. So why not you tell us about yourselves? Maybe Shuting, you can start. Give us a short introduction to yourselves and tell us why you decided to join med school.
Sure. So my name is Shuting, as you can see on the side of my background. Yeah. So I'm going to start my second year of med school soon. So yeah, I've been through hell. First year is finally over. The reason why I'm in med school, okay, it's kind of cliche to say that I'm in med school because I want to become a doctor and I want to help people. It's kind of the most common answer out there for reasons of going to med school. But I have another reason. I'd say a career in medicine is very unique. It's the opportunities and the people you work with it's always different compared to a corporate job. Yeah, your hours are not regular, and every day is just a surprise, in the wards and in the hospital. So that's why I considered studying medicine and pursuing it as a career.
That's true. You're always on your feet. What about you, Eunice?
Well, my name is Eunice. The reason I joined med school, well, it's kind of an unconventional reason too. I didn't necessarily want to become a doctor when I first joined med school. I knew that I wanted to be in the science sort of industry, but I just didn't know which segment, I guess you can call it. I was interested in occupational and physical, and I just didn't necessarily have a firm decision. So by the end of it, after consulting a couple of different people, where I just kind of went the route of, you know what, medicine will open up more doors by the end of 5 years. Even if I didn't end up becoming a doctor, at least I will still have the skills and the resilience and the different things that you get through medical training that will definitely give me a better chance and a different set of skills compared to a normal occupational therapist who just goes through the normal pathway of taking a occupational therapy degree and then going to master's.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have the idea that we will definitely become a doctor when we study the medical degree, but they sometimes fail to recognize that this degree is also quite versatile. We can have a lot of options as well when we graduate. So let's get into the next questions. What are your expectations going into first year of medical school? Shuting?
Well, my expectations. It was definitely a lot of like classes, physical classes, and like actually going to campus, being very hectic and just staying in school all the time because you need to study, and like school is the most conducive environment that's possible to do that. But we are in an unprecedented time, unfortunately. So there's a pandemic going on, so everything is virtual. You do everything at home. So it is very like different from what I expected from med school. I did anticipate like maybe throughout my first year there will be a chance for school to reopen and to have classes physically, but unfortunately we went the whole year virtually. Yeah, but I still wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Yeah, okay. Same. I think we all expected the lockdown to be like maybe a few months of of online classes, but then who knew we only had like a few days of physical classes.
Exactly.
That's so sad.
Not even at the start, like later on.
Yeah, it was like later on a few physical practical classes, and then even our exams had to be postponed online in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What about Eunice? How about you? What were your expectations going into medical school?
I think same as Shuting. I think just give a little bit of backstory. We were supposed to start in around, I think the first week of May was our aim, or the midway through. And the pandemic hit in March, and by May we were like in full country whole Malaysia MCO lockdown. So nobody could get out of the house. I couldn't get out of my apartment, to say the least. You couldn't leave that. So in a sense, we were all expecting, to be in classrooms, and here we are ending up staying at home. For me, it was different in a sense where I had never studied in Utah, so I didn't know what to expect. And but for me, studying at home was just such a natural thing because I had a couple of years of homeschool under my belt by then. So it was a bit more natural. One of the benefits of studying at home is you can go to classes in PJs. Like that's awesome. 30 minutes, your bed is next.
That's the only benefit of online classes. You can take classes in bed.
Yeah, sip a coffee halfway through it, listen to some lectures, take some notes, in a way. If you really want to, after lecture, you can go back to bed in your own bed. It's so lovely.
You can take a short nap as well.
Short nap too, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, but it was I personally enjoyed it because I didn't have to worry about the part of transportation because taking transport kills your time. It would have taken me about 1 to 2 hours to travel back and forth. So it was really nice.
Yeah, I guess that also means we catch up on a lot of sleep.
Debatable.
As much sleep as we can get. Expanding on what Eunice has said, I want to ask about your pre-U years. Like, how did it feel to transition from your college level to your university level? I know Eunice and we studied A levels in MCKL in Methodist College Kuala Lumpur. Okay, so that's a different experience compared to Shooting, who actually studied in Foundation, right, in Utah.
Yeah.
So maybe you can ask Shooting to share about how did it feel to transition from Foundation years to a medical degree.
Sure. I was a May intake foundation student. I took foundation in science, and then because the pandemic, how it happened was like in early March, there was already wind that the country might go into lockdown, and then when I got back from a vacation, like a weekend vacation after that, and then I was supposed to have multiple tests for my foundation year, and it was the last semester already. Then suddenly school was locked down for 2 weeks. There was no classes going on, no virtual classes at all. So then afterwards they recuperate and then went back on track with online classes and online exams, which was quite difficult to adjust to. But I could say that I had prior experience than you guys to the mTeams interface and how Utah runs its classes online. So I would say the transition from pre-U to my degree was relatively simple because I was still within the bubble of Utah and working around the rules of Utah. So the only difference is with the teaching staff, the faculty, and the content of learning. Otherwise, it was quite a smooth transition, to be honest.
Do you feel like you were well prepared to go into the medical degree? How did it feel? Was it like a very big step up?
Yes, I think it is quite a huge step up. Your foundation wouldn't really prepare you well for what is going to be unleashed in year 1 medical school. That I have to be very honest. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you learn the basics of physiology and some organic chemistry. These things, it pops up in some parts of your medical degrees syllabus, but a lot of the things that you learn in year 1 is relatively new and takes a lot of time to understand and remember it. So in terms of adjusting to the content, it's far different from foundation because the amount of info is so much and you have so little time to actually digest it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. How about Eunice? How did it feel to transition from A levels to a medical degree at Utah?
I mean, it was of any transition of when you go from a new school to another. It's always going to be adjustment whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of echoing what Shooting said, the syllabus. I think that's one thing when they tell you that medical school is hard, and another thing is when you're in the spot and you're like, oh yeah, med school is hard. Yeah, don't do it, guys. And I mean, in the midst of that, I was just amazed. I mean, even for Shooting, we met pretty early on, so I was really grateful that at least she knew kind of the nooks and crooks of it and was able to kind of guide me, even to entering the first class. Who knew? She helped a lot, so very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's very good. So it's good to have friends. Okay, let's talk about challenges. what are the challenges that you faced during online classes and how did you overcome them?
Challenges in online classes.
Where do you start?
Yeah.
Everything's a challenge.
Everything's a challenge. I'd say the lack of physical resources are like UTAH has prepared us well with a lot of online resources with virtual anatomy and like, asking us to buy textbooks and all that, and their notes. But then, there's something about having access to an actual library of medical books and having access to the anatomy museum with so many models to see. There are certain things that can be replaced by them. Yeah. So I felt like that is probably one of the weaknesses of having classes online. We didn't have access to all these ready resources.
Yeah, I think that means our anatomy knowledge, it was harder for us to study anatomy without those resources.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine it.
Eunice, can you share with us any challenges that you have faced during this lockdown and during this online classes, and how have you overcome this?
Yeah, I think like what Shuting had mentioned, the resources that were in UTAH, I think I didn't necessarily appreciate it until later on. At the end of after we had our EST form, we had some remedial practical classes that I realized there were so many dummies there that would have been so helpful when the lecturer was teaching. So you could actually visual it and actually see it. That would have been fantastic. Another thing about studying is a lot of times that you're studying alone, and so the convenience of when you're in a physical classroom, you get to just turn to your friend on the right or left, and you say, hey, I need help in this. Could you help me, solve this? And we can, in the moment, if you're free, during a break, and just solve it one shot. Whereas when you're online, it's kind of hard to point out, and in text, let alone like in video call, sometimes it's just so difficult. And it's honestly so awkward, especially when you're a new kid in the block and you don't know anybody, and it just takes that step of intention of actually, hey, saying I need help right now and I need to reach out. Who can I reach out to? And I would say, if you're ever in that situation, just reach out to whoever you know first. You may have to make an extra 2-3 other new chats to somebody else just to get the answer, but that's okay. At least you took the first step in stepping out of your comfort zone. Very odd things that you learn during the pandemic.
So advice to the juniors: take initiative and talk to people.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk to seniors.
Yes, talk to seniors. Oh my gosh, our advisors.
Yeah.
Not advisors, so our tutors are for, they're called
mentors.
Yeah.
Mentors, tutors. Sorry.
Sorry. I think also just to give into, I think I was very amazed by the UTAH support system, because not only do you have mentors,
you have advisors as well, academic advisors.
Academic advisors who are lecturers. I really enjoyed mine because she was very straightforward with me, and she was just pointing out and willing to do a couple of different things that not necessarily a lecturer would be willing to do it out of their own free time. You also have counselors here in UTAH, which they're actually pretty beneficial if you ever need somebody to talk to. And you know what, you and your course mates are in together. You either brawl it out and fight to see who gets on top, or you either help each other on the way. So
that's true.
Whenever you are struggling, a lot of times when you're isolated, especially in a pandemic, it's so easy to just think, oh gosh, I'm the only one suffering it. But in the journey that I've been able to, very blessed to go through shooting, it's just been amazing to see the different things that we struggle. It's like I was like, hey, are you feeling this? It's like, oh my gosh, this is literally what I was thinking like yesterday. And it's just that amazing camaraderie that you build.
That's true. I guess I think what Eunice said is really true as well, that especially during MCO, we really need a very good support system, and I think UTAH really provides that for us. Okay, so the next question I have is, what do you think was the toughest subject for you personally?
Biochemistry is tough because it's a lot of chemistry, a lot of it, no kidding. Name of the compounds and the pathways. It takes a lot of willpower to have it, like, know it so well that it's on your hand already. And the second one that's hardest for me would be anatomy, because anatomy is like facts, where the organ is. You can't really like think where could it be. You just gotta have like some basic knowledge about it. Then only you could, from that foundation, build up the logic of anatomy. So in the beginning, it'll be quite tough, but gradually, if you got a good foundation in anatomy, you can easily cruise through physiology and pathology. Yeah, but anatomy is the first hard step that you have to take.
Yes, agreed. It's like you can't give a reason or try to reason out why the heart is where it is. It just is. So you have to just memorize it.
I guess if you want to ask where it is, embryology is the one to blame, but that's not an easy
Yeah.
topic either.
Yeah. How about Eunice? What do you think was the hardest for you?
I mean, shooting's answer ain't cliche. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah, I guess
think
for all of us.
from a helicopter point of view, the one thing that I didn't realize was in medicine, everything is related. So it's I like to give somebody gave me this analogy of using your medicine is building a puzzle, a huge puzzle with so many little pieces. When you first start off, and by the way, you're building a puzzle without even seeing what the image is. So you are blindsided. You don't know what you're going to. So imagine when you start off. I think the first class we had was embryology.
Oh yes.
The lecturer had warned us very hard from the beginning. He said, it's gonna be tough, you're not gonna understand, that's okay. And boy, was it tough. Even till this day, there are certain things I'm learning. I'm like, oh, that's what he meant. Like,
yeah, you have to review, go back and see. Like, oh, that was what he was talking about.
Yeah, and so they're all related. Until you have all the pieces, do you realize that all of them are interrelated? Just because you have a problem in your heart doesn't mean there's not any problems in your lungs or something else. It's because of your whole blood system that's being connected, and that was something that just took me such a long time to even understand. And it was very discouraging because imagine like you thinking, oh my gosh, I've nailed this down. Go to the exam, apparently not, and you're just frustrated as to like what on earth is wrong, and having to restart, relook, re-get yourself, and charge through it. Another thing was just the sheer amount of information that was poured onto us. In comparison to what a normal school may have, where they have like schedule, okay, Monday is math, this, Tuesday is this, that. In medicine, in university, basically, I mean, your whole day, every day is different, every week is different, every second is different. So you not just have flexibility, you got to be able to cope with not just absorbing new information, you have to start revising it. So imagine when you get to the end of, for example, week 8, usually that's when we have our exams here in Utah, in MBBS specifically. And you are studying for material and revisiting information. And it's just a whole chunk of like, okay, which part of the day do I spend? Which part of the day do I not? And another thing I realized was at the start that I had to throw out my whole system of what I usually used to study. And honestly, I would not reveal it, but my studying techniques at the start was horrible. It is still horrible. I'm still tweaking it every day. I don't think there's such thing as a perfect technique. You will always have to adjust for each subject. That's unfortunately, that builds up, in a sense, you can look at it, that builds up the flexibility in learning to solve different things instead of just using your own way to look at different angles. It also poses challenges because again, you're on time crunch, you're lacking your time, you're probably lacking your sleep too because you're trying to figure things out. And when you do anything the first time, it always takes the longest.
I think what Eunice said that we can really highlight to our juniors is that don't be surprised if you need to change your method of studying. And because how we study in our pre-U is not necessarily how we're going to study in our university. Even in medicine, there is no, like how you say it, there is no perfect way to study, and you just have to adapt as you go along the classes.
Yeah,
I think that's a very good piece of advice.
Yeah, I wouldn't say when you get to university, just suddenly change everything and drop everything and don't care. That is not wise, and that is not advisable. But slowly change it, and that's part of also asking for help, because it sometimes takes somebody else who's older than you, who has been through this process, to give you recommendations. Now, just because somebody gives you recommendations doesn't mean it worked for you. It's a trial and error. I think one great example is when Shooting and I started studying together, we thought flashcards were the answer. We seriously thought flashcards were. And by EOC 3, we came to realize, oh gosh, it is not. It is time consuming to create. And it's taking our efforts up, and it's just not the most effective way. And so then we branched off to doing pop quizzes by ourselves. We branched off to going online trying to search for questions and all that. And at the end, I think we just came to realize that, you know what, there's no one way of doing it. There's just different styles that we can. And I think that's another benefit of studying with somebody else, because shooting may not be great at anatomy, but I may be better at it. She may be better at pathology, and I just suck at it. And so it's that sense of humility and teaching each other and taking that time to really grow each other up and really encourage others, through this journey that we are on together.
That's very good. I think that's a very good advice for the juniors can take from us. Now let's take a step back and ask a more general question, nothing to do with studies, but how has this pandemic affected your mental health? I think maybe you can go first.
Mental health wise, I'd say, medical school without lockdown is already a gigantic boulder itself that you have to carry. And adding on that you have this pandemic looming around, then likely you have family members who get diagnosed with it, and then you're worried about them, or this pandemic's lockdown caused certain people to not be able to run businesses, or they can't be in a place where they're supposed to be. Let's say you're renting a place and like you're just not around campus, and there's no point for you to stay around campus. It's a higher expenditure fee for living, because you're living on your own and you need to buy food every day, right? Then why not you just go back and live with your family? It's more comfortable that way. So that's how like most of the students opt, like they just opt to go back, and like all these rooms around the campus just empty. You can't just like, bail a room that easily. There are prices to pay, and that price is basically a deposit, and it's not like an easy thing for every student to do, because their parents basically forked out money to help them with these expenditures. So I guess whatever the lockdown imposed, whatever it cost, would be an additional stress to students. And I don't think I am excluded from the wrath of the pandemic either, even though I'm very lucky to not have family members to be infected. I do feel the wrath of the lockdown. Yeah. How it's affecting students who are actually renting rooms around the campus, and then having false hopes, not to say that the faculty is not planning well, but it's an unprecedented time. They don't know what to predict as well. So when they asked us to come back in October, they were like so sure. They were like, please come back in October. We're going to start classes soon. We want to take this exam physically. And we're like, okay, they're really sure about this. To find a room, you need to start in advance, and then you're just searching high and low for a room. And then you finally sign the contract and you rent it. And then like last minute, they're like, sorry, the pandemic
Sorry. Go home.
Yeah, go home. The pandemic exploded again. And then you're like, so what now? I've just signed this contract. I can't just like flank out and like burn my parents' deposit. Do I just keep on renting and hope for one day the faculty asks us to come back and I have this place ready? Or, that's one of the looming stresses other than medical school that I personally had during the pandemic. Yeah.
It wasn't just EOC 3. It was, I think, EOC 2, 3, and 4. And then throughout the whole thing, they kept telling us. It was,
we had the anticipation of maybe going back, but then like it never really happening, and then finally happened, and then bye, let's go home again.
It was like first prof, only the first paper we did it physically, and then at the night and before the next day for the next paper, they were
the night before the exam some more. It's like, okay, so I'm sorry, but
you're like, you're gonna love this, trust me. Next two papers, do at home.
Yeah, I think I was panicking as well. Yeah, I think it was like a panic as well to do first prof online. That was kind of stressful.
And they were like asking if you were staying with other candidates, and like you were staying with another roommate, right? Same to me. And we were like having these strict rules that we had to follow and make sure our roommate was not in the same space as us. So it felt so tense and it was so nervous,
Yeah, it's like thank goodness, like the rooms that we were renting, right, the unit that I was renting, it was just me and my other friend that was staying in there, and we had like empty rooms, spare rooms that I could use as an exam room,
Yeah. Wow. Imagine if you had to do it in the living room. That would be really tough. People walking in.
Yeah. A lot of distractions. I don't know. How about unis?
I think it's the same mental struggles that any first year will struggle. You're overwhelmed, you're tired, you're exhausted. You're just wondering yourself, what on earth am I doing here? and all that. I think the unhealthiest things that I faced was comparison. That is a
Yes.
dangerous thing to face.
Yes.
I'm very grateful that I had friends where I could be honest about that and like say, hey, like this is what I felt. But at the same time, they were so, supportive and really welcoming. And that, again, that whole group of just growing up together and facing this as one shot instead of being by yourself is so well needed.
Very well said. I guess also one more thing I wanted to say was like we didn't really have much of a semester break during our entire first year. So I feel like that kind of, I mean, personally for me, I felt like my productivity just kept going lower and lower the longer I studied medical school. I felt like I was very motivated in the beginning, but then it kind of just went down. And then you just have to really rely on discipline to go through with the entire year.
Yes.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is what is your social life like? Because medical students are kind of expected to study most of the time. Hence, there is a stereotype that we don't have much of a social life. And what is your take on this? Maybe Shuting?
Sure. Social life. Yeah, you were kind of right that medical students are nerds. But we do spend a lot of time on studying because our course demands that amount of studying. But social life isn't necessarily neglected when you study in med school. Your social circle, you could keep your social circle outside of med school, whatever friends you had before med school, or you knew them from other faculties. You can definitely maintain that friendship because you kind of need an escape outside of med school. You can keep on talking about school. It'll drive you crazy. But another great support system while you're studying is to have a close group of friends who study the same thing as you. Especially you could be friends that are casually talking about for fun, but the best way is to have this study group. Study groups are I know it sounds cheesy, but actually, yes, study groups actually help with studying. Helps a lot, to be honest. I've never done it before med school because I've always been like a lone wolf. I always studied on my own. But then when I entered med school, I knew Eunice, and then we started as a pair of people studying and like preparing, churning out flashcards every single day. Then we gradually move on to a 3-people group and then 4-person group, and then we transitioned the way we studied into like we quiz each other about points. We try to ask, hey, do you remember this term about a certain disease, or do you know the position of what, like that? And then just casually we just go look for the answers and remind each other the facts. So that is a nice way to bond with your classmates, and at the same time don't feel like you won't feel like you're falling behind in your studies. You're actually keeping up with your studies and having a great time bonding with your friends as well. So no, social life isn't exactly abandoned in medical school, but you need to take the initiative to, start these relationships with people around you.
Eunice, how about you? Like going into from MCKL, not being from Utah, how did it feel like? How was the social life like being in Utah?
I mean, with being any newbie in any university, let alone not being able to see somebody face to face, was tough. You're not able to interact with people. It's difficult, but I'm also thankful in a sense. The group of friends that I had in Utah, it's so important that you're able to. Everybody has to contribute in a sense of being serious when you're studying. When you're studying, it's work time. You don't get distracted or anything. When it's time to play, we play hard too. So in having that both balance and both priorities, at times of course, like we probably get a bit too cheeky. Like, hey guys, let's get back to here for a second. But majority of the times we're pretty serious in what we want to achieve, and we're here to help each other. We're here to get through this together. But otherwise, I was also very blessed in a sense where I also had an outside group that I think is very important to not just be circled around your school, but also have some people outside, not just your family. Maybe it's an organization, maybe it's a church or something else, so that you're not always caught onto it. And I love that because it was like kind of like my safe haven to sometimes just run to it and just leave my studies all behind, because it would have to force me to just push everything aside and focus on just relaxing and just being a human being instead of just sitting in front of your computer all day long.
Yeah, we are more than medical students.
Yeah. But again, it's so important. You cannot And I learned this the hard way. You can't just wake up, study, eat, study, sleep. It is in no way.
It is not a way to live our life.
No.
It's not. And keep in mind, medicine is not a sprint. It's a full-on like lifetime marathon until the day you retire or the day you quit. So it's important. Yes, it's tedious, it's hard. If you do not want to put in the hard work, I'm sorry, just don't come here. Don't. You're just gonna make your life very, very miserable. But it's also important at the same time of playing hard and studying hard to relax. Your mind is limited. We are human beings. We are not robots. We are not gods or little g's. We are human beings who need rest. That's the reason why you sleep at night, is to rest. So it's important to have that. And again, it's okay if you don't figure out. Me and Shooting, we went through the same thing of times where we had different burns out, and we were just saying, hey, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And we were like, great, it's okay. Today, why don't you go rest? I will take your load today. And then we will kind of interchange in that sense. So again, that support system is so important. And that's why I really love the fact that in pandemic, we were able to study also at home. Because as much as my siblings were annoying, was so annoying at times, they really had this magical thing of being able to like kind of snap you out, maybe in a not unnecessary or very nice way, but to kind of call you out and say, hey, spend some time with family. Study is important, but there are also more important things than studying in just your career.
Yes, that's very true. I feel like what I really could see from the both of you is that you both have a common mindset, and that really helps you bond. Like it's a very good thing to have. I think between friends, you need to have a common mindset. Then you can get through anything together.
But again, when doing group studies, it may not work for you. It worked for us, but it may not, and that's okay. It's wise to choose people where you're not necessarily have to have like the exact like replica of studying methods, but you also complement each other and able to put in the work. If your study partner is not willing to put in the work, like you're gonna suffer. So
then just study by yourself.
Shake it off and like
yeah.
Now let's talk about motivations. We've talked about why we went into medical school in the beginning. So can I ask, has your motivations for attending medical school changed since you started? Maybe Shooting?
it would be a lie to say no.
Yeah.
Because like you go through the exact scene of medical school, and then like those changes are bombarded at you, so you can't help but feel discouraged about certain aspects of your motivation to study in medical school, the motivation of helping people or even achieving a good career in medicine. It's kind of difficult right now, especially in the scene of Malaysia. Seeing it's quite a bleak future for junior doctors right now. So I'd say, you get demotivated by all of these external factors, but you would also have new reasons to be motivated to stay in medical school as well. It's not all the negatives. So your interest would change over time. You would realize certain things are not as practical as they are when you go through medical school. But rest assured, you probably would find new purpose while you're going through medical school. And if you don't, and you feel like it's not for you, that's totally fine to shift out to, because medicine is a commitment to make. So I feel like you don't have to go down the path of medicine to be someone great. And you don't have to lose the passion of helping people and then say that you're not going to be a good doctor. That's not necessarily true. It changes with time. So you won't know until the end whether or not you get through this.
So what kept you going when your own motivations of staying in medical school keeps changing?
To say what kept me going, I would say, well, first of all, I can't just suddenly drop out of school. That is like the common Asian perception. You can't just drop out of school. That's not a good look on you, right? But then also, it's like if you gave up like halfway and you never actually saw the result of what's going to happen, then it's kind of a shame. You didn't really push yourself through the limits and give yourself a chance to perform at least, because it was just one small failure or one small mistake that discouraged you, or maybe one small incident, yet maybe you got a scolding from a lecturer or whatever, right? But then there will be plenty more of these instances coming in your 5 years of medical school. So why not just, not to say that your feelings are not important, but then like acknowledge them, take the lesson from it, and then move on. Because it's bound to happen, but everything happens for a reason. So don't diminish yourself for it, and then like take it with a grain of salt. Don't take their words literally or anything, just take the main points from it.
How about Eunice? What do you think? Has your motivation stayed the same, or have they changed since you started?
Yeah. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I started off not thinking I would become a doctor. At this point also, I'm like kind of wondering I still get those thoughts of what am I doing here on earth with these smart, intelligent people. And like what Shooting has highlighted, it's currently a very bleak situation here in Malaysia, but there is other options out there. There are other things. You can go overseas and take different exams. It has changed in a sense where I am currently more open to becoming a doctor. As to how that will go, only time can tell, I guess. I personally, and I hope this will relate to some people out there, I am on scholarships. So for people who have been on scholarships or who are trying to attain scholarships, the one thing is, if you ever think of quitting, it's not just you signing a piece of a paper from whatever Utah. I think it's a blue color paper from Utah. I can't remember what the color is. And just give to Utah and say, I'm done, I quit. For me, I have to think about, okay, what's going to happen with the scholarships? How are we going to repay? Is there going to be anything about backfires on me if I do? Can I pick up another scholarship to go study somewhere else? It not necessarily is a good motivation, but it's not necessarily a bad either. Because in life, I mean, take one example in music. When you start learning an instrument, when you first start, you're gonna have this exponential growth. Like, whoa, this is great. This is awesome. Let's keep going. And you are bound to get a point in music where this is frustrating. I'm not getting any results. You're coming to the point of where you're plateauing, to where the amount you put in may not equal to the same amount of effort as you were used to before. And at that point, you just need to have that resilience. It's important to have discipline. Not to say that you drive yourself to the point of losing your mental health. Absolutely not. But at the same time, you also can't just, oh, this is tough, I'm going to give up. Like in life, you are bound to find things tough. You're bound to find people, like what Shooting say, lecturers are going to scold you. They're going to criticize you for not knowing things when they actually haven't taught you of it. And you're wondering, why on earth why are they criticizing you for? You're going to find where if you do a practical paper, I like to tell this side story of where I remember the first practical we had. I was so clueless about pathology. One question usually to take you about 5 minutes to answer. I took about 30 minutes the first time I ever attempted. And I remember thinking in my head, Shooting is giving out these amazing answers. She's like 8 questions right ahead of me, and I just could not wrap my mind around how on earth she could figure out what on earth was I not. And there's all these demotivations that come in. And that's where it's so much more important to have a support community, a group of people who love you, who you can run to when you face these moments, who will comfort you, but also with loving, tell you out all these truths, hard truths that you need to hear, but in loving sense of where, hey, this is just a comment. The lecturer doesn't know you. They don't know your situation. Learn from it. Okay, this is something you are learning, even though I haven't learned before. And just move on, because technically his opinion doesn't really matter of whether he calls me name or whatever. It doesn't. It's that tight group of people who know you and who love you and wants the best for you that matters.
I think that's true. It's very important for us to not take things too personally when it comes to scolding. I'm sure they only want us to do better, our lecturers or maybe our seniors in the future, senior colleagues. But also, only you yourself know yourself the best. And your own motivations to keep going, you have to rely on yourself, and nobody else can judge you for dropping out or for choosing a different degree, because I guess at the end of the day, they're not really in your shoes. And like what Eunice said also, like it's very important for us to have a very good support system to help us to keep going, because sometimes we also need other people to motivate us. it's not enough to just motivate yourself sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think that, yeah, you guys really have very good points. Okay, so what is one advice you would give to your juniors, the incoming first year students?
Yeah. I mean, I would say this again, this is easy said and done. Be present in the moment. You're gonna face moments of where you're gonna feel, oh my gosh, like exams coming up, I can't do this. And like all that. But at the same time, it's so important to just, for example, if you're in an anatomy class, just admire. Honestly, even if you don't pick up everything, like in a lecture, you're only gonna pick up, let's face it, you're only gonna pick up 20% of it. So and that's okay. But sit there and enjoy it actually. And admire of how your body has been created. Your body twists and turns into become what it is now. And the fact that you're even here in med school, let me just put it blankly, that probably wasn't an easy feat to get here. Whether it was because of money issue, whether it's because of multiple universities you just couldn't accept, or whether it was because of the pandemic, you couldn't travel, and so you decided to settle here. So what you come to is amazing. Enjoy it, because you're probably only gonna get these 2 years to be with everybody else. Later on, you guys are gonna slowly disperse and all that. So, play hard and have fun too. Don't take a day at a time. Let tomorrow's worries be worried tomorrow.
That's true. I think it's very important to not think about the whole 5 years or like the whole journey of going into housemanship and all of that. If you think about all of that at once, I feel like it will be a bit overwhelming sometimes. So it's very important for us to like, yes.
Yeah. Sorry. No, it's good to plan. I'm not saying okay. This don't take my sentence literally. And then like, oh yeah, tomorrow what am I gonna do? Who knows? Let's just leave that to tomorrow. Of course, don't do that. That's
Wait, we
not
had
wise.
class. Wait, we have an exam tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh. Strategize. I don't know about you guys. I used to strategize by my month sometimes, by my week, of just okay, I need to cover these things, I need to cover that. But a lot of times when you get into that groove of strategizing, you tend to lose focus on what is actually important, which is just to stay in the moment. We only get to live today once, so why not just live to the best that we can? So again, it's that balancing and that prioritizing of like, okay, certain things are going to be important, certain things are not going to be important today, and it's okay if you do not get it right today. There's tomorrow to try it, and just give it all, give it your best, and that's all you can ask for.
Yes, just do your best.
Yeah.
How about Shixing? What is your golden advice for our juniors?
Don't be a lone island in med school. That's just not doable. Not to say that you must make a study group or have this huge posse of medical students as friends, but like not to say that you have to be popular in med school in order to survive, but then like my point is
we just have a whole big group. My study group is the whole class.
No, I don't think
not
that's
effective,
possible.
guys. That defeats the whole purpose of group study.
We'll be talking more than studying.
True. So my point is, when you need help, especially when you feel like you're on the brink of breaking down, or you need advice from someone who is not in your shoes, maybe like not your peers because they're going through the same thing, likely they have the same views as you, like they feel like very hopeless and all that. Always feel free to reach out to the people who are there to help you, your counselors, your academic advisors, your mentors. This is a bad way to put it, but use them efficiently. Yeah. Yeah, because medical school
they're
is
there
quite
to help.
emotional. Yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster. There's no way you can cope with this all on your own. It's going to be tough. Yeah, so you will feel all these negative feelings. You'll feel like you're useless or you're hopeless or you're just mad at yourself for not performing well. And that is very normal. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. You can acknowledge those feelings, but please don't incorporate it into like what you think of yourself. You are not that person, right? And when necessary, always look for your peer if it's necessary, or an adult or a counselor or anyone who's just experienced in that field and talk to them about it, because they'll see the bigger picture of what's going on, and maybe from there they can point out to you, hey, maybe you could try something like this, or it's not as bad as it seems actually. Like take a step back and get a general picture of it. It's actually quite solvable. It's not as bad as you think it is. Yeah. Yeah, especially in the pandemic, you're alone all the time. You're studying in front of a screen. No one's no one's noticing like your changes, like how you interact with people, or whether you're showing signs of like isolation, and it gets undetected, goes under the radar during the pandemic. So you kind of have to take that initiative yourself, take the courage, and reach out for help whenever you need it.
That's very good advice. Reach out for help. And if you're feeling sad, it's okay. It's natural. Can feel it, but don't dwell on it. Eunice, is there anything you would like to say to your past self?
Anything that I would say to my past self? I guess I would have told her that it's gonna be okay, that you're gonna make it through it. You're gonna be fine. It's gonna be tough, it's gonna be rough, but there's been just such amazing providence of so many things I could never have imagined. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Yeah.
That's very touching. How about Shuting?
What I wish I knew before med school, I guess the first thing I wish I knew was there's no way that you could cover everything and be certain of every info at every moment of the time, because you're bound to forget, and you just don't have enough time to revise everything and like remember the facts word by word. You're basically grabbing things as they go, and like by the time you get new information, you forget the old one. And that's human nature, so you've got to go easy on yourself on that. You can do flashcards to prompt the memory and all that, do whatever it takes to prompt the memory, but don't blame yourself when you forget about something. It's bound to happen. Yeah, it's a new thing. It's your first year, so take it easy. Slowly incorporate it, make it into like make this knowledge into something like an instinct. That's what makes us doctors. Like this knowledge becomes an instinct for us, but it doesn't come instantly. It takes time. So don't be angry at yourself or like blame yourself when you're not absorbing the info like a sponge, like so quickly like that. As you might not have the gift like others are, but that doesn't make you any less of a person. Yeah. That would be why I wish I knew.
I think both of you have very good points. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to forget, because we're human. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna make it through. That's very good.
That's also one thing about exams. It's such a huge focus. It's the one thing different with MBBS, which some other degrees may not realize, is we don't get that many assignments actually.
Yeah, we don't.
I feel like we're like back to secondary or primary school where you just study. Minus the homework part, and then we just sit for exams. Too many exams. Yeah.
Year 2.
I know.
Oh yeah. We're going into year 2 now, so we shouldn't speak too soon.
No, but in a sense, when you're in year 1, you're so overwhelmed by the thought of exams.
Yeah.
You're so overly focused, and this is easier said than done. Trust me, Shuting, everybody, we all struggle with it. We all need encouragement. We need to encourage each other every time we go to an exams. Exams is just a measurement of that one moment when you're sitting down, whether that's 8 a.m. in the morning or 2 p.m. after you had a huge lunch and you just feel like falling asleep. It's just a measure of, at that time, do you recall it or not? And it's okay if you don't do well. Learn from it. This is a piece of paper. Now they're testing you as how much do you know now. This is a piece of paper right now. Imagine later on when you actually go to the clinic, you are facing a real human being where your decisions of whether you get this drug or that drug could be a matter of life and death. And so in a sense, take it easy. But also don't go to the other spectrum of where it's like, I'm not gonna care about exams. This is just a piece of paper, right? Nobody will care.
Don't be too chill. Don't be too chill, but yeah.
Learn from your mistakes. in
Yes, chill in
moderation and
moderation.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you make a mistake, that's okay. Just recall as much as you can, learn from it, and just move on. If you need time to cry and grieve about it, go for it. I can tell you, me and Shooting have cried many tears. It may not show on our faces right now because of the 4 months break, but we have had our fair share of sad moments and frustration moments, and that's okay. How you react to the situation, that's what will make a difference.
That's very well said. And now we have reached the end of our very first episode of the Human Library podcast. Once again, I'm Michelle and I've been your host for today. And I would like to thank Shuting and Eunice Chan. I'm very honored to have you both for the very first episode. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Michelle, for hosting today's episode. Really honored to be on the very first episode of the Human Library podcast. I hope there's many more episodes coming for this podcast. Hope it's a long-living podcast and garners more listeners, along the path. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Please go follow, like, and subscribe.
Yes, that's good.
All different
Follow,
social
like,
medias.
and subscribe. Yes,
Yeah.
and we'll see you on the next episode. Hopefully.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.